let's start. Bly Manor is not a good show, and if you think that it is, you're wrong. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, that's just how it is. Hill House, incredible, revolutionary, a masterpiece. Mike Flanagan, really just, cherry on top of the cake. Bly Manor, very lackluster, very, not so good. But I can't just sit around here and make a list of things that are good about Hill House and things that are bad about Bly Manor. That's what I've done, but I'm gonna tell you why I can't do that. Because it would just go on forever. It would never end. Hill House, as I've said, incredible. The list would be infinite. And Bly Manor, complete opposite. It was the worst thing I've ever... No, not the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just very slow. There was no payoff for me. Let me put some criteria in here. I can't just list things. I have to quantify this in some way. I can't just say things. I have to back them up. What I'm going to use are 6 criteria for making a good story. What makes a good story? I spent hours and hours readying myself to Google really quick what makes a good story, and I found an article by some guy whose name I forgot to write down. I'll maybe put that in the description. So I found these 6 criteria of what makes a good story, and I will just simply compare Hill House to Bly Manor. Super easy. By the end of it, you'll get a juicy little conclusion that's going to tie everything together, and you're going to feel, oh so good, that's going to be my little cherry on top of the cake. So for those of you who don't know, Hill House and Bly Manor are 2 shows on Netflix. They're both blood relatives or part of an anthological series. The Haunting of Hill House came out, I'm gonna say 2018. Definitely should have looked that up beforehand. Yep, 12th October 2018. And Hill House and Bly Manor released this October, just gone, 2020. 2 years apart. Bly Manor was very and highly anticipated. People were, I say people, it's me. I was so excited for it. There were little shreds on like Facebook articles that you hear like, Hill House Season 2 cleared for filming. Hill House director says Season 2 gonna be good. Hill House Season 2 better than the first, but also spooky. So I was very excited for it. Every little shred of information that I could get for it, I was so ready. And then it dropped, the news dropped August, maybe September of 2020, that it was finally going to be here. It's finally going to arrive. Both shows revolve around a house or building, and you have a family of sort, or just a collection of people, and there are ghosts or supernatural, spooky bits, paranormal, whatever, that go on behind the scenes and affect and interact with the house and the people in one way or another. Both, what am I saying? Hill House was great. Bly Manor sucked. Need to remember that. As a quick rundown, let's look at each show and real quick just say what's going on. Hill House has several cast members. Hill House has around 10 to 15 characters that play one role or another. You have the mom and the dad, they have names, and 5 kids. I should preface this, there are going to be a lot of spoilers. This is an in-depth dive into why Hill House is great and why Bly Manor is terrible. I'm going to have to mention plot twists, I'm going to have to talk a lot of spoilers. I'm just going to have to talk and then make it coherent. Okay, Hill House. A family, mum, dad, 5 kids. 5 kids, mum and dad. That's 7 altogether. 2 timelines. Past when everybody's kids, apart from the parents, they're adults, and present, where everybody's adults, even the parents, apart from they're not parents anymore, the mum is dead. Now, Hill House itself, spooky. Crazy shit goes down there. Why are they there, you ask? Well, parents, they're flippers. They buy cheap properties, build it up, and then they sell it, and then they take all that money and they move to the next place, and they keep doing this, going and going and going, with the intention of building their dream house. The mum was an architect, she designs everything. The dad is a handyman, he can fix everything. The kids, they're just kids, they don't really do much until they're adults when they start doing a lot. That's about it, that's the plot. Very good. The house is spooky. You're always drawn back to the house. Hill House? That's a bad feeling. Now Bly Manor, on the other hand, has maybe 10 characters, maybe more. It gets a little hard to keep track of what's going on because it's just hard to watch. It's a difficult time to slog through it, but you have Dani, who's the main character. She is a lady from America. She's come to au pair in Britain. It's all set during the 80s. One timeline. That's already a point against Bly Manor, because if you want to be cool, have different time streams. You also have two kids, Willis and Flora. Miles and Flora. They're kids, their parents have died sometime beforehand, we don't know why. They also have an uncle. He's around, but he just drinks in his office all the time. He's the one who hired Dani to be the au pair. You then have the ground staff. You have someone who is a gardener. She has a name, sure of it. You then have Owen, and you also have Hannah Gross. They're all doing things. Owen cooks. He's really cool. My favorite character. Hannah Grossman, she is, I'm not sure what you'd call her, like the maybe not mistress, that has some weird implications. She manages the house, she looks after the kids, she makes sure everything is clean, she's there. She's also very cool, like her part a lot. Owen and Hannah, we ship that, that's, love that. Jamie, the groundskeeper, she looks after the grounds, she does plants and things, kicks off that Miles takes a rose or two. Miles and Flora, weird kids. Dani, fine. And Henry, the uncle, he is just there as well, to be honest. They live together, apart from the uncle, he just lives in the office, and also they don't live together at all. Owen and Jamie live off grounds. It's only Dani, Hannah, and the kids that live together because they're a family now. And there are some ghosts, there are some spookies, they're out and about, but they're not really the focal point of the show. Even though it's called Haunting of Bly Manor, it's not really a ghost story. That is just what you have to accept. Stuff happens, people die, some people don't die. That's the show. Leave a like and subscribe. Now moving on to the criteria that I'm going to be judging them by. We got six. We got six criteria, and those are what I'm going to measure each show against. We've got Hill House, we've got Bly Manor. I'm going to say this one, Hill House, is better than this one, Bly Manor. And I'm going to say it's good because and bad because. So, 6 criteria. We got relevance and relatability, detail, emotion, narrative proximity. How have I missed one? Something unanticipated. Relevance and relatability, detail, emotion, narrative proximity, what happens next? That's your 6 criteria. I'll explain them briefly in a quick cut montage. Obstacles to overcome make the story more interesting, rather than a recounting of the story. Relevance and relatability means a person can empathetically attach themselves to a story, making it better. Detail. We remember what we feel. Wow. Bly Manor is 500 minutes long. I'll never get that back. We care more about the people, places and things that are close to the things that we are, people and places and things. Truly compelling stories make us ask, what happens next? These criteria are how I'm going to tell you that I'm right and you're wrong, unless you agree with me, and then, sucks to be you. Something unanticipated means if you go into the story thinking one thing or expecting one thing, and it throws a curveball out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, then you're more likely to go, whoa, and remember it and attach with it more because it goes against your preconceived idea of what's going to happen. Whereas if it's very cut and paste and like, hey, we've got the story, you got a good guy, you got a bad guy, they're gonna have some trouble, and then the good guy is gonna win and everybody's happy, you're gonna go, right, I don't care. Let's do a banner that says something unexpected, and then I will just jump in with Hill House. It really hits the nail on the head with something unexpected. I was sat there in my comfies, lights off, middle of the night, feet not hanging off the bed just in case there's anything hiding under there. I don't want to mess with no ghosts. And I was all ready for it. I had my Snuggie around me, put the episode on. Yeah, spooked the fuck out of me. I mean, admittedly, I am a child when it comes to horrors. I'm a child in general. Mayonnaise is too spicy for me. Hill House is scary, and I don't like it when my hands get cold. That's how much of a child I am. But Hill House did something else. It was very unconventionally spooky. You had jump scares, but they didn't feel like jump scares, and it took me a little while to figure out what it was about Hill House that made it so unnerving. And it's the very clear distinction between terror and horror. If you imagine the two, as terror is the build-up to an event, and horror is the event and the kind of dread surrounding that. Hill House relies on terror to give you the spooks, whereas other things like every other horror film ever relies on horror. The clue is in the name. It relies on jump scares and spooky and gore. There's somebody running up to you and jumps on your back, that's gonna spook you. But there was no build up to it. Or maybe there is. Maybe, some horrors, Insidious, that scared me when I was a kid. And, it had a lot of build up. It had the kind of dreadful music, it had the like creepy characters, you had the sense of not really knowing what was going on, and it was spooky. So when you had these jump scares, yeah, you're permitted to be afraid if you're watching a horror film. Hill House is about terror. The thing with terrors is that there's usually a lot of build-up but very little payoff, and horrors, there's very little build-up, which means that the payoff is usually a cheap jump scare, which you go, oh, fuck. So it's over now, right? I'm gonna go back to playing Peggle. But Hill House does terror very, very well. There is always the sense of dread. You're always on the edge of your seat. You may have paid for the whole seat, but you're only going to use the edge. The seat of the edge? The edge of your seat. You're going to be tied to it because oh god, it's so tense. You don't know what's happened, you don't know what's coming next. You just know that Hill House bad thing happened in Hill House, and the kids aren't free of it yet. There's something following them. Nobody's happy. Very powerful sense of dread. So that alone, the distinction between terror and horror, is enough of an anticipation for me to claim this as one of the best spookies there is, because of the just intense feeling that there's always something behind your back. There's always any character that turns around. I was frightened for them. I was terrified, literally, because of the terror. Now, on top of this, the storyline was just incredible. Every scene interlocked with another in such a pleasant viewing experience. The flashbacks that I mentioned and the present day shots, they also worked hand in hand. It was never like you're watching the present day and then like a smash cut to the past and you're like, I don't have any idea what's going on here. It was always something in the present day that would trigger a flashback, but it wouldn't ever be a flashback. The characters wouldn't go, remember that? No, it's a very soft transitions. The show made me want to get into cinematography because of the way that it was filmed and shot. Every scene, it was like one stationary camera that would orbit around each character. If you've ever seen The Birdman of New York, very reminiscent of that, because the camera will look at one character and then move around them, and you see another character and they'll have dialogue, and then maybe very incredible scene transitions. The whole show, from start to finish, felt like one fluid motion. The cinematography made it feel natural, that you are flip-flopping between your past and your present. On top of that, Hill House is not a ghost story. It is a story about mental illness and family troubles. Everybody can relate to that. On top of the points that I've mentioned, Hill House also has incredibly dynamic characters. Neither one of them feels like a filler character. They all work together, and they're also fleshed out. They're their own people. They don't have to rely on one person or another. They are their own individual person with their own wants and needs and likes and dislikes, and that's awesome to see, because people are people, and I can relate to a character that I see on a show if they act like a person, because I act like a person. Very good to see all characters fleshed out, acting like characters would. They're even like, hey, let's just not go to the spooky place. There are ghosts present, but by the end of it, you're not afraid of the ghosts. You're not like, oh, these guys are horrifying, I don't want to go to Hill House. You have a totally new perspective of it, because the ghosts were never the point. It was the characters that were the point. There was a huge emphasis on building up each character, and you can really see that with how dynamic each of the characters are. Like I said, they have their own likes and dislikes. They have their own personalities. Each one feels like a person, and it's because they're the star of the show. Ghosts are just in the background. Literally, there are ghosts everywhere. There are like 90 ghosts just roaming about. Flopping over to Bly Manor on the other side. It is not unanticipated. It is very anticipated. It's the most cut and dry. You know what? Maybe it is unanticipated. Maybe there were bits, and some people did go, oh, wow, I never saw that coming. But me and my friends and people who I watched it with, it was boring. We saw exactly what was coming. And even worse, we didn't care what was coming, because none of the characters were fleshed out. The storytelling was very, very slow. So by the time something actually did happen, which is about 8 hours into the show, we didn't care. We just wanted it to be over so that we could watch something better, like Hill House again for the 8th time. So maybe there were people that looked at Bly Manor and went, didn't see that coming. But me and the people that I watched it with, we didn't care. That honest truth. There's this bit at the end where Bly Manor is being narrated by the mum from Hill House. Not actually, just the actress Carly Gimaggio, Spy Kids' mum. She is narrating a story that her friend told her to a group of people in a room, and right at the end somebody goes, hey, you lied to us. This wasn't a ghost story at all. This is a love story. The problem with Bly Manor that I had with the something unanticipated criteria was that everything was so slow that I didn't care about what happened. The characters weren't fleshed out until halfway through the show was done, and at which point I was just sat there wondering what could possibly happen in the next 5 hours. Hill House, right from the first episode, like 2 characters die. You have the everlasting presence of dread. You have ghosts around every corner. You're just scared to you're just scared. Bly Manor, it's called The Haunting of Bly Manor, and yet there are no ghosts. And yeah, it dresses itself up as a love story, but Hill House didn't need to do that. It said, we're the Haunting of Hill House. And through watching it, you realize yourself, you came to the natural conclusion, this is about mental illness. This isn't about ghosts at all. Bly Manor, it's so unambiguous that at the end they literally have to tell you, this is a love story. Sorry that you didn't get that, because they knew. The writers and director knew, maybe this isn't a good show. Maybe we've not done a good job. I'm tired of something unanticipated. I'ma move on to relevance and relatability. Quick rundown. If something's relevant and it's relatable, you're gonna feel more to it because you can imagine yourself in those situations, because it'll be a relevant or relatable story. Let's continue. It's Hill House's turn. God, Bly Manor isn't looking good so far. There's so little to talk about when it comes to Bly Manor because so little happened. All I have to do is just shit on it, but it's so boring to even recount that I don't want to do it. Hill House, on the other hand? So Hill House. It's relevant as hell. Mental illness, right from the start. Stephen, the eldest, he's like, hey, our family has hereditary mental illness. But do they? Don't they? My candle just blew out. Oh boy, that smells. I mean, it smells good, but it's very smoky now. Stephen's like, hey, hereditary mental illness. And everybody's like, no, it's ghosts. And he's like, bet. It's ghosts. I mean, it could be mental illness, but it's ghosts. In the original story, it is left ambiguous as to whether it's mental illness. But I don't read. I've never read a book. I barely know how to write. I'm just going off the Netflix adaptation, and it's definitely clearly ghosts. They've gone to a lot of effort to put ghosts in there. It's ghosts. But it could be mental illness. I was going to say everybody can relate to that, but I don't think that's 100% true. I'd say at least half of all people ever would be able to relate to mental illness of some description. What else people can relate to in Hill House? The whole family is dysfunctional. I'm sure people can relate to that. If it's not your biological family, maybe it's a close group of friends, and one of them spends too much time playing Peggle, while you and all your friends, you all want to play in Peggle too. But that one guy, he just prefers the original content of Peggle. What are you gonna do? That's a dysfunctional family. You can relate to that. There is no Peggle in Hill House. That's my one critique of the show. Hill House also has like death of loved ones, present day arguing with siblings and stuff. Like there's yelling and conflicts of interest and like trust issues. Death of a parent. Not everybody has had a parent die, but at one point a parent will die. Most parents will probably die. It is the sad truth, and we can relate to that because you worry about that. We all worry about that, unless you don't, in which case you have mental illness, dysfunctional families, and trust issues that you can relate to instead. My point being, Hill House is a very relatable show. It's got a little bit of something in there for everyone, as long as you're into really dark shit. Bly Manor, on the other hand, Bly Manor is very unrelatable. And you know what? I've watched a few reviews now. I tried to not watch any reviews, because anytime I have an idea, I want to kind of keep it original and not have anybody else's input taint that. But for Bly Manor, I figured I'll see what other people say, because all I've seen are good reviews. All I've heard are people saying this is good. And I have to tell them that they're wrong. I need them to know. But I figured I'd see why they were saying that it was good. And the main argument was that it's a love story, but not because everybody gets together, because there's a lot of taboo love, or love that they're not able to get together, and ghosts just help or adversely do not help with that. You have Danny and Jamie. It's the 80s, and they're two girls. Then you have your Owen and your Hannah. They're very heavily hinted at really being into each other. I want them to be into each other, not in that way. Should have thought before I said that, but I want them to run away to Paris together. Unfortunately, Hannah is dead. She died right before Danny arrived. She was killed by a little boy who happened to be possessed by a big boy. So Hannah can never leave. So their love is never able to come to fruition because one half of the couple is dead. You also have the mum of the two kids and the uncle, not related. They are having an affair. In fact, the uncle is Flora's dad, not Miles's dad. Miles's dad is dead. Flora's dad is their uncle. Their mum is also dead. They're the parents that have died. That's forbidden love, I guess. Go off. And in that sense, I will agree. Thematically, sound storytelling. However, actually watching that, I just kept wishing that the Lady of the Lake would come out and break my neck, because I wanted to be doing anything else at all. Specifically being dead, because it was a slog to get through. It was so slow. It took 7 episodes to finally do something, and then they had the gall to play the same shot of Danny getting choked out like 4 different times at like the end of one episode, the start and end of another episode, and then the start of the penultimate or final episode. And it's like, please do something else. It wasn't really climactic at the time that I saw it the first time, and it's certainly gotten worse the more times that you've shown it to me. I'll say the relevance and relatability. I guess I've never had a forbidden love, or a love that was frowned upon, or taboo. I'm unfortunately in the most privileged category. I am a straight white male. I know, I'm sorry. So maybe it just doesn't relate to me personally, but I don't know. There were some members of the crowd that watched it that night that definitely aren't my category, and they said, I'd rather be asleep. Why are we watching this at 2 in the morning? It sucks. Nothing ever happens. Nothing exciting ever happens. And none of them seem to have Owen. Owen has a fleshed out personality. He looks after his mum. He used to be in Paris. He's a really cool chef. He loves cooking. And he wants to go back to Paris. I like that. That's enjoyable enough to vibe with. Jamie, she looks after plants. Don't remember why. She had a monologue. It wasn't incredible. It went on for an ungodly amount of time. Definitely didn't enjoy it. I did for a little bit. I thought, this is going to be sad, but I'll pay attention to it, because this is going to be sad and it's probably going to have some relevance. No, wasn't relevant at all. Definitely sad. Definitely wish I paid more attention, but I think the attention that I did pay on episode maybe 5 or 6, that was a grace of me. We got detail. Very self-explanatory. If your story has detail, it's going to be a better story than a story with no detail. Would you like an example? Hill House has a lot of detail, and it never feels overwhelming by the amount of detail you have, because Hill House doesn't go out of its way to bash you over the head with exposition on what's going on. You have a lot of these long, drawn-out monologues, but none of them ever feel like the Bly Manor monologue, where you're like, wow, this is really impactful. Sure wish it was over. All of the Hill House monologues all feel emotional. They all feel impactful, and like I hang off every word that the characters say. It was incredible because of the aforementioned points. Everything is relevant. It's all relatable. Each character is so dynamic that when they tell you a story from their past, or the best one, Theo has a superpower where she can feel people's emotions, not like how everybody feels emotions, like she touches them. She wears gloves all the time, but if she touches you with her bare hand, she'll tell if you're sad or you're happy or you're a sex pest. It happens. Give it a watch. And she loses this after touching her dead sister's body, because that's what started off the whole show. Is their youngest sister Nellie. She kills herself in Hill House. Hill House is spooky, don't go there, you'll die. Then everybody's like, well, what happened to Nellie? Theo decided, hey, my sister's here in the morgue, I'm gonna sneak in and touch Nellie. She does, and then she freaks out and yells for like the last little bit of an episode, and then she's just drinking for like the next 2 episodes and like freaking out and stuff. She falls over at one point. It's kind of slapstick, but in like a depressing way, so it's fine. You find out in like the penultimate episode, she has this really impassioned monologue after Shirley and Theo are stuck together and they crash a car.
Excuses are so...
And she's like, I feel nothing, just intense darkness, and I wish that I was dead because anything would have been better than the terror that I felt in that. And you're like, preach. I mean, not preach, I don't want to feel that, but I felt that. It was incredible to listen to. And there are ones throughout that as well, like every character, apart from Luke, everybody has a really incredible speech that really just hits you like, wow, that is relevant. That has made me hope that I am never able to feel other people's emotions because, oh god, what if that happens to me? And also, it's relevant to the character because she is just like that. And you're like, wow, Theo, I'm having a really deep insight into your life right now. Shirley has one. Nellie is a ghost. She has flashbacks. We see her flashbacks. Different timelines. Stephen, he has like a long monologue about how his dad should have died instead of the mum, and like he's just yelling at them, and there's a thunderstorm going on in the background, and it's like, it's a wonderful crescendo of just bad that's all coming together to make me feel so bad inside, but also I want more of it, and you just love it. You every little bit, every word is a little sprinkle of detail on top of a crepe made of detail also, and it's incredible. Everything just adds to the overarching story. Like it's just watch Hill House. It's so good. Don't even bother with Bly Manor. Even if it was just a love story, it's a bad love story. It's not worth watching. But Hill House, it's enough to make a grown man cry. Bly Manor. Bly Manor does not have that amount of detail. Or maybe it does, it just doesn't deliver them in the same way. Bly Manor has 2 monologues, one for Jamie and one for Owen. Owen's is really good. It comes in maybe the 3rd or 4th episode, where you're still hoping, where I was still hoping that the show was going to get good. It did not. But this monologue was really nice. Owen's has a very tragic story. He left Paris, doing his dream job of being a chef and everything. He left to come back to Bly, where he looked after his sick mother. She has dementia, if I'm not mistaken, and she sadly passes away one night. He attends her funeral, he comes back, and everybody's like, let's get fucked up, let's drink, hell yeah. They have a big bonfire, and they're drinking wine and everything, and he's like, me and my mum, we used to build each other up, we used to vibe, we'd be best friends, and we'd push each other to be better, but then she got sick, and at first I was like, it's okay, I'll just help you until you get better, but then she didn't, and she became an anchor. Instead of pushing me up, she weighed me down and held me closer to the ground so I couldn't achieve things. And the saddest thing is that I'm almost kind of glad that she's gone, and that's like, damn, that's fucked in a very beautiful way, because like the struggling is over and you can relate to that. That's relevant to every person, because again, it's death and it's family oriented, and everybody worries about parents and they worry about the decay of life. It's sad. You can definitely relate to that. Even if you don't have a family, you probably worry about losing your mind. It's very sad and a very scary way forward. And Owen does not see the light side of things. His cloud does not have a silver lining, apart from he doesn't need to stay in Bly anymore. He can leave and go to Paris. He can like carry on pursuing his dreams. We later find out that he does do that. He has I think a fish and chip shop called A Batter Place in Paris. I have nothing to say about that, but the monologue is good. It is impassioned. You have a little more insight into Owen's life and the things that he feels, and for a brief glimmer there, you have a character in the show that actually has a personality that isn't just fed to you. He talks as if he were talking to a campfire full of people, and he's just drunk and upset, and he's like, my struggle is over. It doesn't make me feel good, but it also does make me feel good. And you're like, wow, I get that. Then Jamie has her like monologue later on, and it's like she has a really tragic backstory. She grew up kind of as an orphan. Her dad wasn't cool. He didn't live in a mine. He worked in a mine most of his time. The mum was like sleeping with everybody, and it came in like episode 6, and it was, for me and others, we were watching Bly Manor. We realized that it wasn't going to get good. We'd seen enough shows this lockdown to know that it wasn't going to get better. It was just going to keep going downhill, or even worse, it was just going to stay level. No spikes, no dramatic dips. It was just going to end at some point. And it did, and it was never gratifying. I heard somebody, in one of the reviews I watched, I heard somebody say, right at the end, there's that little twist that connects every story together, and you're like, it blows your mind because it's connected everything together. It's giving you a whole new perspective on the show, and it doesn't. I think that they're relating to the character saying, oh, this is a love story. It wasn't. It's not a love... Okay, it might be a love story. It's just not a very good one. Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging, much better love story than Bly Manor. Go watch it. Because we knew that it wasn't going to get better, it was no longer worth the effort that we were spending watching it to attach ourselves to the characters, because we didn't care what happened to them. And also, there was no danger. In Hill House, up until the later few episodes, there is the omnipresent danger of Hill House. Is the ghost mum going to come back and kill everybody? Are they going to be able to save the day? What's going to happen? Ghosts, mental illness, it's still ghosts, and you're worried. There's a sense of urgency with your characters that you've come to love, because they're not just characters on a screen, they're real people now. They have emotions, they have feelings, and you don't want them to fucking die. That'd suck. Bly Manor, kill them all. See if I care. Kill every one of them. I don't give a shit. Fuck them. A cup that Hannah drinks from, she's handed it, and she either never takes a mouthful from it, or it's visibly empty. When it was revealed that she's dead in like the 5th or 6th episode, none of us, nobody, not a single person went, oh, dead. They all went, yep. We just saw it coming. This is what I mean. Nothing unanticipated. We guessed it all. It was very cut and dry. Even if it wasn't a ghost story, why would she have been a ghost? I think a very good parallel to draw between Hill House and Bly Manor in relation to detail is how they handle questions. The very specific questions that aren't necessarily asked by characters, but questions that we ask ourselves by what the show is showing us. In Hill House, I'm going to take the Red Room as an example, and for Bly Manor, I'm going to say the West Wing. Although you could use any question. In fact, I wrote a list of questions, and they all have very simple answers that are never gratifying in any way. When we first see the Red Room in Hill House, it's in the past, and you have Shirley and young Nellie. They're kid-sized, teeny-weeny, and they're trying keys in this red door that they can't get into. And they, like the groundskeeper, he goes, hey, give this to your kids. This is like the master key. This should work for everything. And the dad, Hugh, he gives the key to the kids. They run upstairs, and they're like, hey, Red Room, let's try it. And it's not working, and it's a very distinct red door. It really stands out. Maybe just because it's red and nothing else is red in Hill House. Well, that's colour theory. But the key doesn't work, the door doesn't open. Shirley's like, hey, maybe this just doesn't open. Nellie's like, no, I see things under there. Maybe it's a pony. And they're like, that's dumb. They move away from it. But that leaves the question in the viewer's mind, what is in the Red Room? I know that this is a horror show, so something spooky must be in the Red Room. Maybe it's the Red Room that's what is spooky about the whole show. You then find out right at the end, right at the climax, you find out about the Red Room, and oh, it's crisp. It's good. Watch it right now. Stop this. Carry on with this. I've put like 2 hours into this already. Watch this, then go. No, in fact, I'll put my hubris aside. Not use that right. Go and watch Hill House. Come back and agree with me. Don't even bother watching Bly Manor. You don't need to. I'll sum it up in this. I'm right. In Bly Manor, the first question that we come across is, why aren't the kids allowed to go into the West Wing? Because it's a big mansion, you have East Wing, West Wing, foyer, kitchen. I don't know how mansions work, but I know there are at least 2 wings. How do they fly? They're stuck to the ground. But the kids aren't allowed to go into the West Wing, and that makes you think, hey, this is a ghost story. We think, this is a ghost story. Maybe the ghosts are coming from the West Wing, and that's why the kids aren't there. But no, it's just the parents' room. That's it. They're just not allowed in because it's the parents' room. And they go in there anyway. Like, almost every character can be found in the West Wing at least one point. The Red Room? We never know what's in the Red Room. That's what makes it so cool. I mean, we do right at the end when it's, so crisp. West Wing? Who cares? Choose any other question. Who is the Lady of the Lake? Doesn't matter. She's boring. What happened to Rebecca? She died. Boring. Who is Danny's ghost? Doesn't matter. He's boring. Why is the lake bad? Because the lake lady's there. And she's boring. The point is, detail makes a story good, and Bly Manor has almost none of it. Emotion. Strong emotions make you feel more. And because you feel more, you see the show, you have a fonder memory of the show. That's what I'm trying to say. So, good emotion or bad emotion, just strong emotion, good feeling or bad feeling, but big feeling. Hill House's turn, again. I said in the last bullet point, the last criteria, every monologue, incredible emotional response. It just hits you like wow. It comes out of nowhere. It swings a left hook right into your face and you're like, that fucking hurts. But do it again. Hit me again. And it does. It never pulls any punches. It really makes you feel. It is sad. The show starts, you have like the mum's death, you have Nellie's death, you have the constant threat of people dying all the way throughout the show. That's a strong emotion. I'm gonna associate strong emotions with this show because I don't want to die. I don't want my younger sister, if I had one, I don't want them to die. I don't want my parents to die. That would suck. These are strong emotions. These are big emotions. Then the show even ends with the dad dying, and that's another, it's like bittersweet because everybody is saved by the dad sacrificing himself, but he's not really gone because ghosts are real in this show. So he's gone, but he's also not gone, but he also is never allowed to leave Hill House again, and the kids, to my knowledge, never return. So I don't know. I guess that is a bit of a plot hole, but I don't hate it. I like it. I like the show, and I like that the dad died. So that's death. We got safety of children, sex and power. Safety of children, every flashback, the kids are always in danger. They each have a personal ghost, apart from when they don't, when they instead have like spooky shit that's going on. You got Nellie, she's always haunted by the bent neck lady, which genuinely made me afraid to wake up in the middle of the night in case there was some kind of horrible spectre on like floating above me that would yell at me. I'm afraid because she would yell at me, not because she's a ghost. I just don't like confrontation. Luke is terrified because he wears a top hat, and when he goes to sleep that night, a ghost comes and collects that top hat, but it's not just any ghost. And he has a face, but I remember it being pretty gross. That'd spook me if I was an 8-year-old boy. Maybe I am. You don't know who I am. You don't know how old I am. I could be 8 years old. Shirley finds a bunch of kittens in a beehive. Am I remembering that right? Yeah, she gets the kittens. There are one for each. There's one for each of the kids, and they all die. They all get weird. Like one of them spits up a bug. It's already dead. The bug like crawls out of it. They all die. It's super wild. I think the dad actually kills them. Oh, Jesus, that is fucked. That's spooky. Theo, to my knowledge, just has a bad time. That's fair. Stephen, he sees his mum the night that she dies, but he is like, ghosts aren't real. It's mental illness. Mum wasn't possessed and she's not a ghost. She had a manic episode and then she killed herself. Then as adults, the ghosts start appearing again. Nellie sees the bent neck lady and that causes her to go back to Hill House, where she tries to confront the ghost. There's like a whole build up to that. Go and watch it. It's incredible. If you've seen it, you know. Sad, heartbreaking. She goes to Hill House, where she kills herself. Kind of kills herself, her mum kind of kills her, but they're dead. That's definite. Where she also reveals, because she dies by, it's very like horrific, she hangs herself from a set of stairs. While she's there, she realizes that she is the bent neck lady, so there's like a little time travel parallel going on there. It's very nice. Luke is also terrified by big walking man. Other ghosts and stuff crawl out and try to snatch him. Same thing happens to Theo and the dad. Stephen just kind of always dismisses everything as mental illness. He's kind of a downer, but he is important. It's all emotional. So the kids are always in danger. There's some drug abuse. I don't really think that's... I mean, it's sad, but that's more relevant and relatable than it is emotion. I should really organize my bullet points before I just start talking to a camera. But drug abuse is in there, and it is sad. Bly Manor's turn. Yeah. So when it comes to Bly Manor, the emotion makes a good story point, and there is very little emotion. The only emotion you feel watching Bly Manor is boredom and sad. So you have these monologues, and they're fine. Like I said in the last point, they're emotional, but you only really care about Owen's because by the time Jamie gets to hers, you've lost interest in the show altogether. So you don't care what she has to say, and you also don't care about her as a character. That's just that. That's the way it is. The kids, they are the only ones that understand what's going on. They talk to the ghosts because the ghosts are their former friends. They're adult friends. You have Rebecca, their former au pair, and I think his name is Peter. He was their uncle's friend and always hung around with Miles and is now possessing Miles. And Rebecca is intending on possessing Flora, but she doesn't really want to do it. But it happens. They get over it, it's fine. The kids also know about the lady in the lake, but they don't really care about it. They're never like in danger per se, until right at the end, where the characters explicitly say, like, yeah, you're not gonna like being possessed, but it's the only way I can leave Bly Manor. So, would you like to be possessed? And the kids kind of go, no, I don't really think I do, but if it's gonna help you, sure thing. And then they get possessed, and it doesn't matter. And then they just stop being possessed because other stuff happens. And the kids are never in danger. Flora gets carried off by the Lady of the Lake to be drowned in the lake. And, oh God, it never felt like she was in danger. She was literally in the jaws of a tiger. And I was sat there like, bet. So the safety of children was never in, there was no danger. I was never concerned for the safety of the children. Sex and power, neither show really had either of those. In Bly Manor, the characters are so boring that you never have chance to get attached to them. They're not dynamic characters, they're not individuals, they are the means to an end of telling a story that also isn't very good. Narrative proximity. Narrative proximity, as I said, you will feel more attached to things that are closer to you and also to things that have happened more recently rather than things that have happened a long time ago. Uh, do you feel sad about the Big Bang? No, because you don't care, because it happened so long ago. Nobody is capable of remembering it, and nobody does remember it. But do you remember yesterday? Me neither. But I'm sure something happened, and I'd probably care more about something that happened yesterday than something that happened 22 years ago. This one is quite short because I think narrative proximity and relevance and relatability, I couldn't really distinguish between the two, so there is a lot of crossover in that. But for Hill House, it happens mostly in present day, and there is a lot more easily relatable things that happen, such as interacting with family that is dysfunctional on a daily basis. As I said, you can easily relate to that. Bly Manor, on the other hand, it happens in the 80s, and the only thing that's relatable is the forbidden love. The only thing relatable or narratively what happens next? It's the last bit. This is the last of the criteria. This is number 6 on the list. We're here. We finally got here. It's been 2 hours. I'm tired as fuck. I'm sat on a stool. I have a conclusion to do after this as well. God damn it. So what happens next? Exactly what it says on the tin. A good story will have you asking what happens next, and if it's a book, it'll make you keep reading it. If it's a show, it'll make you keep watching it. If it's a game, it'll make you keep playing it. It should never get stagnant, and it should never feel like I am stuck here watching this. I would rather be doing anything else. Hill House does this really well. Every episode you get a little snippet, you get a little flashback, you get a little nugget of information that makes you go, fuck, I have to know what happens. I need to know what's in the red room. I need to know what happened to the mum. I need to know what happened to Nellie. Why did she go to the red room? What's Luke up to? Stephen, can you just admit that ghosts are real? No? Fuck you. Bly Manor, on the other hand, there are no questions. There are no questions, therefore there are no answers, therefore there's nothing to ask what happens next. Any questions were answered in such an anticlimactic way in those first crucial episodes, those first 3 hours that you sink into it. You realize that the questions will be answered, but they're going to be boring, or the questions don't matter, or the show writers themselves didn't care enough to actually flesh out anything that they were writing about. So why should you care about them? Hill House got it in perfectly. It made you care so much about the characters that you were happy just watching them go about their lives. You were happy watching Theo solve child psychology crimes. You were happy watching Shirley complain about having a fucking morgue in her house. You were happy watching Luke make friends with addicts even though he's told right away, right from the first episode you're introduced to him, don't make friends with addicts because that's not how we do things. And then he goes and fucking does it. Stephen, you're kind of annoying, just believe in ghosts. You just care. You just want to know how their life goes. Even if there weren't ghosts, you'd be like, wow, I need to know what these characters are up to. Bly Manor, I don't care at all. I don't care what happens in the show. I don't care what the characters are doing. I don't care if they had a happy ending. I'm just happy that the show's over. That wraps up the criteria. I probably should have added some kind of point criteria thing. I think I summed it up pretty well. I don't actually think I made any points, but go watch the shows, make your own opinion on it, realize that I'm right and that Bly Manor sucks, and stop believing people who tell you that it's great. It's really not. It is just slow and boring. Oh, I'm gonna do a real quick rundown of the criteria that I did, but I'm going to assign a monetary value. Hill House, 1,000,000. Bly Manor, maybe 1. Hill House, I'm thinking about 9,000. Bly Manor, 1. Hill House, it gets a bajillion. Bly Manor gets like 2. Bly Manor has about 6 for the Owen speech. He really carried the team. I mean, he really carried the team. Hill House, a bajillion. Both get about a 7, I'd say. Apart from Bly Manor, that gets a 1. Hill House gets infinite. Bly Manor gets a -2. Conclusion. In conclusion, I'm going to throw out one scenario that should hopefully tie together my points. That scenario is that how do the shows act without the ghosts? Take Hill House, for example. Without ghosts, you just have mental illness. The show doesn't need to have ghosts. It just makes the show enticing. It makes you wonder, is it ghosts or is it mental illness? Normally I would be mad that a show would be beating me over the head by one character saying, no, this isn't ghosts, this is mental illness. You should be thinking about mental illness. But the show subverted my expectations. It's called The Haunting of Hill House. Therefore, because there's a house called Hill House and it's haunted, my vision and my expectations are drawn towards the ghosts and what's going on with them, what's going on with Hill House. And one character saying, it's mental illness. You're kind of like, you're a side character, get out of the way, until you develop and get more invested into the story and you realize this isn't about ghosts at all. This is about mental illness. Stephen was right. How dare you? There are ghosts. The ghosts are real. It's not mental illness. But it could be if there weren't any ghosts. You could just have a really emotional story about families falling apart, having manic episodes, having depression, having anxiety, just collapsing, trust issues, and it would be really good. I don't know if it would be just as good. I am not intelligent enough to tell you whether that would be good, but I like to think it would be good. Whereas you take Bly Manor, and without ghosts, you have nothing. Because even with ghosts, you had nothing. It's supposed to be a love story, but it's not a good story. I don't know how many times I've said it. I might do a little counter in the corner. The love story did not work, even if it's forbidden love. Okay, I understand. Forbidden love, there is a lot of that. Or like unrequited love, or just love that doesn't work. But it's not done enough, and it's not done well. So, where you had that turning point in Hill House of this is a ghost story, not a mental illness, to hey, maybe this is a mental illness story and not a ghost story. Bly Manor, you had what is going on? Nothing is happening.